Exposed, 7 spine-chilling cult secrets haunting the forbidden darkness of our world. Cassie felt it in the air before she saw it, the suffocating crawl of fear that whispered through the small town, sneaking in like a shadow in the night. Her faded blue home, a refuge for her and her 7-year-old son Ethan, seemed to hum with an uneasy tension that weighed heavily on her heart. Every evening, she flipped burgers and poured coffee at the local diner, exhaustion creeping into her bones, but she couldn't shake the sense that something sinister was lurking just beyond her doorstep. Exposed, the rising darkness, a flyer proclaimed on her neighbor's lawn, the colors fading as if fear itself had seeped into the ink. What was happening in this once peaceful neighborhood? Whispers of crime had turned the neighborhood watch into a watchful dread. The air was thick and stifling. Even the sound of children's laughter had a sharp edge to it now, as if they stumbled upon secrets better left buried. Then Ethan came home one day, grinning from ear to ear. "Mom, I met Mr. Hudson. He's the coolest. He tells us stories at the library." But Cassie froze. Mr. Hudson? The charm that melted children's hearts sent a chill down Cassie's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that something about him felt wrong, like an itch in the back of her mind she couldn't scratch. The way he drew Ethan in with a knowing smile felt like an omen. Glancing through the kitchen window, she saw neighbors exchanging furtive glances, their conversations a blend of fear and intrigue as they gathered around something unsettling. "Was it the same flyer she'd seen? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Late-night shifts bled into the early hours, leaving Cassie with bloodshot eyes and a pounding head as she prepared a simple spaghetti dinner. Conversations at the diner turned darker each night, spoken in hushed tones, missing children. Their names haunted the air around her like a smoke that wouldn't disperse. They were last seen near the library, one patron whispered, heart pounding, eyes darting toward the window as if Mr. Hudson might appear. As she confronted the shadows gathering around her, Cassie felt the walls of her home press in closer. Ethan began slipping away into the late summer evenings, caught up in the allure of the older kids playing games that twisted into the night. He's just having fun, she told herself, the cold dread creeping up her spine. But when the shadow of Mr. Hudson crossed her path at a community event, something within her broke. His dark eyes glinted knowingly, and for a moment, she felt lost in a haunting familiarity that turned her stomach. Memories she thought buried clawed to the surface, things her mother had warned her about, the whispers of danger that echoed her past. Fear curled around Cassie like a serpent and kept squeezing tighter. Maybe it wasn't just an outsider that threatened her family. The truth felt buried in her chest, and the gentle heartbeat next to her, "Sweet Ethan," became a countdown against danger that sent her spiraling into the unknown. The very darkness she sought to protect him from was growing, looming ever closer. Each second was a ticking bomb in a game twisted by fate. As silence hung thick in the air, she turned to Ethan, and a shiver of dread passed through her. The world outside felt hostile. Somewhere, in the corners of their quiet life, the whispers spoke of an unimaginable truth. Mr. Hudson was not the only secret waiting to be uncovered. What would she find in the shadows? The next day, the sun rose lazily, casting a pale light through the curtains of Cassie's home. The shadows in the corners felt thicker, more defined, as Cassie moved through the kitchen. She poured Ethan's cereal, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to smile at him. His laughter rang through the house, a sweet melody that was both comforting and haunting. "Are we going to the library today, Mom?" he asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "Not today, honey," Cassie replied, swallowing hard. "Why don't we go to the park instead?" She watched as Ethan's face fell, the joy in his eyes dimming just a bit. But Mr. Hudson said he'd tell us new stories today. The very name felt like ice water coursing through her veins. Maybe another time, she said, forcing cheer into her tone. How about we build that fort we talked about? Ethan hesitated but nodded, though his enthusiasm had dimmed. Cassie could see his hope flickering like a candle in the wind, and she felt her heart clench. After breakfast, as Ethan went to gather pillows and blankets, Cassie stepped outside and surveyed the neighborhood. The once vibrant houses dulled beneath the weight of the collective anxiety. She could feel the eyes of the neighbors watching her from behind drawn curtains, their silhouettes a constant reminder of the darkness encroaching. That afternoon, she decided to visit the library. Something inside her urged her to go, a tether pulling her to the very place that had become a hotbed of disappearing children. The wind howled, a chaotic prelude as she clutched her jacket tightly around her. The library loomed ahead, its once welcoming facade now a dark sentinel. As she stepped inside, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows. The librarian, Mrs. Thorne, glanced up, her expression pinched with exhaustion and worry. "Cassie," she said in a low voice, "you shouldn't be here alone. Not with everything going on." "What do you know?" Cassie asked, urgency creeping into her voice. Mrs. Thorne shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if expecting a shadow to creep up beside them. "It's Mr. Hudson, he's been acting strange. We've had complaints. Children are missing, Cassie. You must protect Ethan." Her heart raced as dread settled deep in her gut. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I tried," she whispered back. "But no one listens. It's like they're enchanted. He has this way of drawing children in. I've seen things." The librarian's eyes darted to the stacks, and Cassie followed her gaze. The shelves felt like they were closing in, the air thickening with panic. Suddenly, a cold chill brushed against her, as though someone had breathed on her neck. Cassie turned, and there stood Mr. Hudson, his presence commanding, eyes glittering with something dark and knowing. "Ah, Cassie," he said, his voice smooth but laced with a predatory edge. "Just the woman I wanted to see. I've been meaning to invite you to our story circle. Ethan would love it. The children flourish in the tales I tell." Cassie's pulse thundered in her ears, desperation clawing at her. "No. I don't want Ethan near you." His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Perhaps you shouldn't be involved then. Stories of the darkness have their price, you know. Sometimes they demand a sacrifice." A chill ran down her spine, weaving through her bones as reality blared alarms in her mind. With each word he spoke, Cassie felt the shadows shift around her, threatening, alive. She had to protect Ethan, no matter the cost. As she backed away, fear mounting like a tidal wave, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit up with a message that froze her blood, the words searing her mind: "Ethan is in danger. He went to the library." With her heart racing, she turned back to Mr. Hudson, realizing the truth: his grip on the children was deeper than she ever imagined. "Where is he?" she shouted, fear transforming into fury. Mr. Hudson's grin broadened, a predator that had cornered its prey. "Let's just say, he's about to discover the true meaning of our stories." The threat hung in the air like a noose, tightening with each beat of her heart. In that moment, she realized the darkness wasn't just lurking. It was ready to consume everything she loved. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, Mr. Hudson began to step back into the shadows of the library, pulling her son's laughter from her grasp, wrapping it in layers of fear. Cassie rushed forward, but the darkness enveloped him first, swallowing his cries. She could only scream, "Ethan!" As the door slammed shut behind them, and silence fell like a heavy curtain over her world, what had she done? The real terror was just beginning. Would she be able to unravel the web of secrets before it ensnared them both? Cassie stood paralyzed, the cold wooden door of the library standing between her and Ethan's cries. Silence engulfed her, thick and suffocating, weaving its tendrils around her throat. Panic clawed at her insides as she slammed her fists against the door, desperate to push through the barrier that separated her from her son. It felt as if the very walls of the library had conspired against her, whispering curses of futility in her ears. "Ethan!" Her voice cracked, a desperate plea that echoed off the shelves. There was no answer. Only the stillness of the library hung in the air, pregnant with unseen horrors. She stepped back, breath hitching, looking around the dimly lit room. Mrs. Thorne was gone. The librarian had vanished, leaving an unsettling emptiness that amplified the creeping shadows. Cassie's heart raced as she glanced toward the back of the room, where the strongest darkness brewed, as if it were alive, pulsing, breathing. With nothing left to lose, Cassie forced one trembling foot in front of the other. She approached the shelves, the musty smell of paper and dust invading her senses. She had to find him. Had to tear down whatever sinister spell had claimed Ethan. The floorboards creaked under her weight, punctuating the eerie stillness with muffled groans. She stepped into the shadowed aisle, her fingers brushing along the spines of books that felt like cold skin, unfamiliar, foreboding. Each title whispered secrets, tales of despair and darkness that made her skin crawl. She swallowed the urge to scream. "Ethan!" She called again, louder this time, hoping against hope that he would reply. But the only response was the rustle of pages stirring as if stirred by an unseen breeze. Cassie squinted into the gloom. The air felt thicker here, moving like fog, wrapping around her legs as she settled deeper into the darkness. Suddenly, a flicker caught her eye. One of the shelves had shifted, a shadow moving among the books. It drew closer. Her heart hammered like a frantic drum, each thud a warning to flee. "Who's there?" She managed to croak out, her voice quivering. From the thick shadows emerged a figure, illuminated by a sliver of dim light. It was a boy about Ethan's age. His eyes were wide with fear, and there was something terrible about his gaze, as though he had seen things that fractured his innocence. "The stories, they took him," he muttered, barely able to form the words. He can't go into the stories. It's a trap. His voice trailed off, panic tightening his features. "What do you mean?" Cassie pressed, desperation clawing at her throat. "Where's my son? Is he with Mr. Hudson? They're all waiting. Down below." He pointed toward a shadowy corner where the light dared not reach. "You can't follow him. If you do, you'll be lost, too." The boy's warning echoed in her mind, but every fiber of her being screamed to search for Ethan. "I have to help him. Please," he begged, eyes filling with tears. "You don't understand. You'll never return. He feeds on them, on their essence. The stories are alive." Cassie's breath caught as realization slashed through her. This was no ordinary library. Whatever Mr. Hudson was weaving in this place was something dark and rooted in evil, a labyrinth where children became pawns in a horrific tale. Suddenly, as if triggered by her fear, the library groaned ominously, the shelves shuddering. Cassie stumbled backward. The boy faded into the darkness, his whispers barely audible, "You can't save him, Ethan." She screamed one last time, suddenly feeling the ground shift beneath her feet, the world around her twisted, the shadows converging like something alive, and the echo of laughter filled the air, a cruel mockery that made her insides twist with dread. Cassie knew she was out of time. She had to make a choice: plunge into the unknown and face whatever darkness awaited her, or succumb to the fear that would leave her son behind forever. With a heart full of terror and determination, Cassie made her decision. She had to go into the stories, into despair itself, if she ever hoped to find Ethan. Again, and all at once, the shadows reached for her, pulling her deeper into the library's embrace, sealing her fate with whispered vows and promises of a horror she had yet to fully comprehend. What awaited her in the depths of the darkness? Would she find Ethan or become another forgotten tale? Cassie felt her body being dragged through a thick darkness that clung to her like wet fabric. She tried to scream, but the air was snatched from her lungs, replaced by an oppressive weight that pressed down on her chest. Shadows wriggled around her, brushing against her skin, circling her limbs like serpents. "Ethan!" She gasped, fighting against the strangling grip of the darkness. Suddenly, she was released, dropping to the ground in a heap. Grains of dust swirled around her, caught in a beam of light streaming from above. As she struggled to her feet, the library loomed larger than before, each shelf contorting into grotesque forms that seemed to leach energy from the air. "Where are you?" she whispered, doubt creeping into her heart. Before she could gather her thoughts, a shuffling sound echoed. Cassie turned, eyes darting towards the source. A small figure stumbled into the light, a child. Disheveled and dirt-streaked, he looked as though he'd emerged from a nightmare. "Help please," he stammered, voice quaking. "It's hungry. It's always hungry." "Who? What is it?" Cassie pressed, the hairs on her arms standing on end. He looked into her eyes, terror painting his features. "The story. The story needs lives, and souls." He backed away, his heart beating wildly. "Where's Ethan?" Cassie cried out, desperate for answers. "You have to help me." With a glance over his shoulder, he shook his head. "You can't go back. You'll lose yourself. We all did." "What do you mean?" Panic gripped her heart. His shoulders shuddered as he inched closer. They take your memories. It's a game of life and death. They play with you and then you're gone." Determination surged through her veins, hotter than fear. "I have to save him. I won't abandon him." The boy's face twisted in anguish. "If you go into the stories, you might find him, but it won't be him anymore. It will be nothing but shadows. Just like us." Cassie swallowed hard, thoughts racing. "Then I'll risk it. I have to try." As she spoke, the air around her shifted. Shadows crawled and writhed, forming a passageway that beckoned her forward. It felt alive, pulsing with dark energy. Reluctantly, she stepped toward it, the boy's warning echoing in her mind. "Wait!" he cried, but it was too late. She refused to look back. With each step deeper into the shadows, memories flickered around her. Ethan's laughter, the feel of his small hand in hers. They were quickly swallowed by the evil that engulfed her. The light dimmed, suffocated by the darkness, and she entered another realm. The oppressive gloom parted to reveal a vast chasm filled with shifting shapes, like pages flipping rapidly in a breeze. Yet the figures looked familiar, children haunted by whispers, trapped within the bindings of stories anew. "I need Ethan," Cassie shouted, her voice swallowed by the cacophony of tales unfolding. Strange forms emerged, shadowed figures bathed in a muted glow. They beckoned her closer, eyes glinting with hunger, words spilling from their lips like venom. "Join us," they called in a chorus of voices. "Become one with the tale." "No." Cassie backed away, heart pounding, adrenaline racing. "I'm not afraid of you." But fear tinged her resolve, and the walls vibrated with the monstrous tension of her thoughts. At that moment, she spotted a flicker of light deeper in the chasm, a small, vibrant glow that held hope within its luminescence. It was a fragile yet fierce beacon in a consuming darkness, and it seemed to pulsate gently, pulling her toward it. "Ethan!" she gasped, recognizing the familiar warmth of his spirit within the glow, but as she started to run toward it, the shadow figures surged, wrapping around her in a haze of despair, their whispers rising in urgency. "You will become part of us. Join the story, or lose everything." The weight of their voices pressed a feeling of dread that threatened to swallow her whole. Cassie's heart raced, battling between the pull of the light and the suffocating embrace of the dark. "Ethan," she murmured, the echo of his name nearly lost in the swell of chaos. She lunged forward, grasping for the light, while the shadows clawed at her, desperate to drag her down into the depths of despair. Would she free Ethan, or would they both be ensnared as new chapters in a tale of eternal darkness? Cassie's fingers brushed against the warm glow, a fading memory of Ethan's smile. She could almost hear his laughter, so close, but so far away. The shadows tightened, their chill wrapping around her like ice, threatening to pull her back into their inky embrace. She felt dizzy, the brightness flickering like a dying candle. "Ethan!" She shouted again, desperation clawing at her throat, but the light flickered further away, just out of reach. The shadow figures advanced, their mouths twisting into cruel smiles, their whispers now a frantic cacophony. "Join us! Join the tale!" They hissed, their words weaving through her mind, a siren song of despair. Cassie clenched her fists, grounding herself in the memories of warmth, laughter, and hope. But staying rooted was becoming impossible as they swarmed closer, the ground beneath her feet trembling with their dark energy. "Fight it! Fight them!" She screamed into the oppressive dark, her voice cracking. She could sense their hunger, and it only fed her resolve to save Ethan. She twisted, aiming to shove through the encroaching figures, when a gasp caught her attention. A familiar voice broke through the pandemonium. "Cassie?" The world paused, the shadows momentarily recoiling. It was Ethan. He stood bathed in a cool mist, eyes wide and filled with a mixture of fear and something else, something darker. But he looked different. The vibrant spark she remembered was dulled, replaced with an unsettling emptiness. "Ethan! I'm here!" she called, her heart racing. "Help me," he whispered, yet it sounded distant, echoing off the walls of the chasm. Cassie moved instinctively, throwing herself toward him. She dodged the tendrils of darkness that lunged for her, feeling their cold fingers scratch at her skin. The vibrant glow of Ethan faded, the shadows gaining ground as if they were eager to snuff it out for good. "Cassie! Don't come closer!" he shouted, panic breaking through his hollow gaze. "You'll be trapped. They'll take your soul." "No! I can save you!" she cried, tears stinging her eyes. "I won't leave you." But the shadows were revitalized by her desperation. They circled around Ethan, gripping him tight. He fought against them, but the light in his eyes dimmed, swallowed by despair. "Do you see? He's gone." "Just like the rest," hissed one of the shadows, its voice slithering into her mind. "You can't save him. You will join him, you will become the tale." "No!" Cassie's scream rang through the chasm, cutting through the swirling darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, she lunged toward Ethan, hand outstretched. The moment their fingers almost touched, another wave of shadows slammed into her, knocking her back, slamming her against the cold, damp stone floor. She felt its weight trying to drag her deep into the suffocating darkness. "Ethan!" she wailed, her voice a fragile thread in the storm, but he stood there, a shadow of his former self, drifting away like smoke in the wind. Panic coursed through her, steadying her resolve. "I won't give up that easily. I'll fight!" Cassie shouted, the strength of her voice surprising her. She pushed against the shadows, clawing back with every ounce of her might. As she fought, memories of Ethan surged, a kaleidoscope of joy, laughter, warm summer afternoons, and innocent adventures. She held on to them fiercely, replenishing her strength. Together she whispered, if only he could hear her, if only he could feel her unwavering grip on hope. The shadows screamed, their anguish echoing as she broke through the veil cloaking Ethan. She shot forward, launching herself towards the faint glow that still flickered in the encroaching darkness. Would it be enough? Suddenly, a powerful force yanked her backward, the screams of shadows deafening. Cassie felt herself slipping, clinging to the last remnants of light. In a moment of horrifying clarity, she realized she had to make a choice. Ethan or my own soul, she thought, heart weighing heavy, and in that fragile moment, the darkness whispered, choose wisely or lose both. Just then, she glimpsed the shivering form of Ethan, half lost and half fighting. Was he still there, buried beneath layers of shadows? Or had he truly vanished into the abyss? Cassie's heart thundered as desperation clawed at her. She could either fight with everything she had, risk everything, or be consumed by the eternal dark. Could she find a way to save him, or was she doomed to lose them both? As the shadows closed in once more, she felt the walls around her pulse with dread. The pull of light flickered, threatening to disappear forever. What choice would she make? Cassie gasped as the shadows tightened their grip, fierce and relentless. The darkness whispered relentless taunts, dragging at her resolve. Ethan. She couldn't let him fade, not now when hope flickered so tenuously. Mustering every ounce of courage, she screamed, "I won't leave you." With a fierce determination, she wrenched herself from the shadow's grasp like a drowning swimmer emerging from the depths. But instead of freedom, she found herself back in the dim light, surrounded by the same twisted figures. They sneered, their faces a grotesque mockery of humanity. "Join us, Cassie. It's easier that way," one of them hissed, stretching its clawed hand towards her. It was a seductive invitation, one that promised an end to her struggles. But she could feel the icy touch of their intentions: death, despair, obliteration. "Never," she retorted, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum, each beat fueling her fury. "You'll never take me." But her spirit was wearing thin, and the shadows rolled like clouds, engulfing her in their suffocating darkness. Fear twisted within her like a knife, turning memories of Ethan's laughter into hollow echoes. "Cassie." Ethan's voice broke through the abyss again, clear and desperate. She strained to find him, hoping to catch a glimpse of his fading light. "You have to." A sudden surge of shadows swept through, drowning out his words. The world swirled around her, a tangled mix of despair and terror. The figures advanced, their intent carved in the chilling smiles that stretched across their faces. But then she remembered something, a fleeting image, like a flash of lightning illuminating a darkened sky. Shouldn't she try to confront the source of this dread? Dive into her fears? The thought was terrifying, yet enticing. "Fight back, Cassie," she shouted to herself, "don't let them win." Focusing on Ethan's voice, she imagined the warmth of their moments together. Each cherished memory formed a barrier against the creeping dread. With a surge of will, Cassie turned to face the dark horde. "You won't claim me." As she shouted, the shadows cringed, recoiling from her sudden defiance. With renewed strength, she pushed forward, weaving through the malevolent forms that clawed at her. The dim mist around Ethan began to shimmer, a flicker of hope ignited within her. "Hold on, Ethan," she screamed, charging toward the pulsing glow where he remained caught between despair and darkness. The shadows hissed in rage, black tendrils lashing out, but she dodged them, each one brushing against her skin like icy fingers. Pain shot through her from their contact, but it only fueled her drive. "Together," she cried, bursting through the final barrier of shadows. For a moment, everything froze. Their hands almost touched, a shimmering moment of connection. But just as their fingers were about to unite, the ground beneath her shifted violently. A rush of air knocked her back, splitting them apart. Heart racing, Cassie stumbled, scrambling to find her foothold. "No!" she screamed. A deeper shadow emerged, larger, menacing, the culmination of their fears manifested into a single, ominous entity. It towered over her, eyes glinting like coal in the dark. "You should have chosen, Cassie. Now you will lose everything." The darkness around her pulsed in rhythm with her frantic heartbeat, and her world began to collapse inward. Fear gripped her throat, and the laughter of shadows echoed around her, promising despair. Ethan's voice, strained and quaking, broke through the chaos. "You have to make a choice. It's the only way." Was it too late? The shadows loomed ever closer, their whispers a vile cacophony aiming to consume her. Cassie needed to decide, should she hold on to Ethan, or risk everything in an attempt to escape? What choice could possibly save them both? Cassie's panic nearly drowned out Ethan's urgent plea, but somehow, she fought through the suffocating dread encasing her. The shadows writhed, their monstrous forms swaying like branches in a storm. Cassie clenched her fists, digging her nails into her palms, grounding herself in the sharp sting. She wouldn't give up. Not now. Ethan. Her voice cut through the chaos, desperate and fierce. What do I do? Fleeting shadows swirled, filling the air with their wretched laughter, twisting her breath into icy knots. The giant figure loomed above her, a grotesque puppet of her deepest fears. Its voice was a low growl, melding into the very fabric of her thoughts. Choose, Cassie. Deprive yourself of joy, or embrace the darkness. One will save you both. What do you mean? She whispered, terror tightening around her heart. With every labored breath, she could feel Ethan's presence flicker, his spirit dimming in the face of such overwhelming terror. The memory of his eyes full of life and laughter was clouded now with despair. A twinge of pain shot through her chest. I want to lose you. Then make your choice. Ethan's voice trembled, echoing in the darkness like a lost note. The shadows lunged, claws reaching for her, hunger simmering in their depths. Cassie's instincts screamed for self-preservation, urging her to flee, but a flicker of light, of love, ignited inside her. No! She shouted, grounding herself, her feet planted firm against the swirling horror. I refuse to be a puppet to your darkness. The immense shadow shuddered at her defiance, waves of fury cascading from its form. Pathetic, it hissed. You think love can protect you? In the end, it is your weakness. Everything twisted into chaos. The ground quaked, rage fuming through the chilling atmosphere. She closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth of his laughter, the light of his smile. Tears streamed down her face as she thought of every moment they had shared, every adventure that breathed life into their souls. Ethan, I'll never let you go. No matter the cost. The monstrous figure recoiled, its face twisting in anguish as Cassie moved forward, a single radiant thought in her mind: she'd rather face oblivion with him than live a life half-shadowed without him. She surged toward the glow, letting love guide her, wrenching her heart from the claws of fear. Suddenly, there was a sharp intake of breath. Cassie felt a force yank her back, a powerful wind like the eye of a storm, swirling around her. She staggered, disoriented, as the deep shadows surged forward, an avalanche of darkness intent on consuming her whole. But she pushed through, her resolve hardening. Together. She roared again, reached again for the light before her, but as their fingers grazed once more, another figure emerged, a woman cloaked in shadows, draped in sorrow, her eyes hollow like caverns of despair. You cannot forsake the darkness, child. It craves you. The woman smiled a pitiless grin, tapping into Cassie's past, the pain, the failures, and a surge of regret surged up, threatening to tear her mind apart. You think love will save you? You will sacrifice everything, and for what? Cassie's breath quickened. Memories of her mother's disappearance flooded her mind, years of wondering, longing, and the pain of unresolved loss. The shadows consumed both hope and despair, and doubt clawed at her resolve. No, she whispered to herself. I want to let it win. Will determination be enough? Can she find the strength to confront both her fears and the darkness threatening to claim them? Or will choice become an illusion, stealing Ethan away forever? Cassie's heart raced, a frantic drum echoing in the hollow expanse around her as the cloaked figure loomed closer. The shadows whirled like a tempest, winding tighter around her, squeezing hope from her chest. She could feel the icy tendrils of fear wrapping around her limbs, threatening to immobilize her. Your happiness was a lie, dear child, the shadowed woman crooned, her voice dripping with malice, each word slithering into Cassie's mind. You believe you hold the power, but the darkness thrives on your fears. Each regret is a feast, each loss a banquet. And you? You are simply a victim, serving me. Cassie shook her head, desperate to reject the vile truth. No. I refuse to believe that. She shouted, summoning every ounce of her strength. But the moment her voice echoed into the abyss, a deep laughter filled the void, chilling her to the bone. With the sound still reverberating, the shadows surged forward, clawing at her, reaching with oily fingers that dripped despair. Cassie's spirit flickered like a flame caught in the gale, but she remembered Ethan's face, the way it lit up, pure and joyous. Love wasn't just a weakness, it was a tether to the light. "Ethan!" she screamed, her voice breaking, as if her cries could pull him from the clutches of this nightmare. "I will not give up. I will stand firm." As if responding to her defiance, the shadows hesitated, a momentary confusion flickering across their twisted forms. Cassie leaned into that precious sliver of hope. Each recollection of Ethan fueled a growing fire within her. "Together we can fight this," she yelled, grounding herself deeper into resolve, letting the memories ignite her courage, but the woman's eyes narrowed, voids of desolate rage. "You think you can escape your fate?" She swept an arm, and the darkness roared back, tempestuous and fierce. "You cannot choose joy. You aren't worthy." Cassie felt the ground shudder beneath her, crackling with the energy of unearthly wrath. But her heart surged with defiance. "Then I'll prove you wrong." The overwhelming shadows pulsed, their laughter washed over her, a cacophony of mockery. Yet even within that noise, a whisper of clarity broke through. "Cassie, listen." Ethan's voice was faint, an echo bouncing off the dark walls of her despair, yet it held a thread of hope. "You are stronger than you think. Do not let them take you away from me." Taking a deep breath, Cassie squared her shoulders. If the shadowy figure thrived on despair, then she would fight fire with fire. "I acknowledge the pain," she shouted, feeling the tremors of sorrow swirl around her. "I lament the losses, but I won't be its prisoner." Suddenly, a flash of light erupted, illuminating the oppressive darkness. Cassie shielded her eyes, heart pounding with both panic and dawn-like hope. In that blinding brilliance, she felt Ethan's presence surge alongside her, an unyielding strength matching her own. Together they breathed as one dot, but just as they formed a united front, the woman screeched. "You think the light can save you? It is but a flicker in the never-ending void. I will pull you both down." Cassie faltered for a fleeting second, doubt clawing at her mind. What if this was a battle that couldn't be won? She glanced at Ethan, whose face mirrored her uncertainty, and yet there was a flicker of something more, a stubborn refusal to yield to the encroaching darkness. The ground roared violently, and Cassie understood. The shadows would stop at nothing to devour them. Her choice crystallized in that instant. And then, as the light flared brighter with their combined will, everything ruptured around them. The darkness shrieked as it retreated, but far in the distance, an even deeper darkness stirred, unfurling itself with a sinister grace. What was coming next would be worse than anything she faced so far. As Cassie braced for the oncoming storm, she felt a chilling truth settle deep within her soul. This was just the beginning. What awaited them in the next wave of shadows was far more terrifying than she could ever imagine. The ground cracked beneath Cassie's feet, splintering reality as the shadows hissed and retreated momentarily. She had thought the darkness could be vanquished, but its ebb was only a prelude, revealing hints of a more profound horror lurking beyond. The very air hummed with a foreboding energy, vibrating with the promise of what was yet to come. "Stay focused, Cassie," Ethan urged, his voice trembling as it cut through the terror. The light that had engulfed them flickered, a flame on the verge of snuffing out. They clung to one another, a fragile connection in a world that screamed of despair, and then, just like that, the wailing shadows reformed, pouring forth like a tidal wave of despair. Panic surged through Cassie, and her breath hitched in her throat. The dark entity, its features twisting into a grotesque grin, loomed closer. "You cannot escape," it shrieked, and the cacophony of its laughter resonated like a death knell. "Ethan!" Cassie cried, her voice strained. "What do we do? We can't let it take us." "I don't know," Ethan replied, his eyes wide with fear. "But we need to find a way out. Concentrate." As the shadows swirled menacingly around them, Cassie felt the weight of remembering and the regret of choices not made rushed back like a flood. Moments with her family, the warmth of laughter, friends long gone, all draped in hues of sorrow. "I see you," she shouted. "You are not who I was meant to be." In response, the shadows surged toward her like an avalanche. The cloaked figure raised its hands, beckoning forth a multitude of nightmares that darted through the void, a parade of lost souls, each one murmuring regrets, their faces twisted in anguish. The sight sent a shiver down Cassie's spine. "Look! They are here because they gave in." The realization struck her hard. Each lost soul was a testament to the darkness's power over them. They were chained by despair. "Don't listen to them," Ethan shouted, shaking Cassie from her reverie. "Focus on the light. It's the only way." With bolstered resolve, Cassie steadied her breath. She had seen enough. "You cannot own me." She felt the light within, growing, flaring in defiance against the despair. "I choose to remember love." The shadows shrieked in fury. "You think you control this? You are merely prolonging your suffering." But Cassie pushed back against the tide, fueled by the memories that filled her heart like a burning furnace. The warmth of Ethan's smile ignited her spirit, a beacon in the dark. "The pain is mine to bear, not yours." The darkness hesitated, a moment of hesitation that felt like a tangible breath of relief. Cassie took a step forward, the light around her becoming a solid thing, bright and pulsating. "We refuse to be your victims." Just as she spoke those words, a violent tremor rocked the ground, shaking the very foundations of their nightmare. The shadowy figure laughed maniacally, throwing back its head, enjoying the chaos. "You think your light can last? This is just the beginning of your reckoning." In that moment, everything exploded. The shadows writhed, undulating in writhing forms, each one more horrifying than the last. Cassie and Ethan stood back to back as the sheer force of the darkness descended upon them, with resolve coursing through her veins. Cassie made a choice. "We need to confront it. It feeds on our fear, and we want to let it win." But before Cassie could act, a pulse of darkness erupted forth, enveloping them, choking the light. Despair flooded in like a vile tide, and she fell to her knees, a sensation far worse than darkness washing over her. The laughter erupted again, different this time, more sinister, as though it had grown stronger with Cassie's resolve. "Welcome to your end, children." Cassie's vision blurred as shadows danced mockingly before her. Still, she could hear Ethan's cries cutting through the dark web surrounding them, his voice desperately reaching for her. "Cassie! Don't give in." She lifted her eyes, heart pounding, terror rising like bile in her throat. This wasn't the end. She could feel it in every fiber of her being. But the weight was suffocating, and the specters closing in showed no signs of mercy. "Just a little longer," she muttered, but a chilling thought echoed in her mind. If the shadows grew stronger every time she regrouped, how long before they consumed everything she had left? As the last remnants of light flickered, a sudden realization struck Cassie with a paralyzing force. They were not just battling supernatural forces, they were wrestling with their own deepest fears. And what if the shadows were just a reflection of their own darkness, a nightmare born from their worst moments? In that fleeting moment, Cassie knew that the true horror laid not in the shadows' power, but in their own vulnerability as their connection was tested once more. Was she strong enough to confront the ultimate darkness within? As the shadows closed in, the last shred of light faded. And she braced for the reckoning. Cassie felt the chilling grip of the shadows tighten around her, as though they had devised a plan to suffocate her will. Fear clawed at her throat, but memories surged in the face of that terror. The laughter of Ethan, sweet and innocent, wrapped around her heart like a fire, warming the coldness threatening to consume her. "We can do this," she shouted, thrusting her fists into the air as the perceived darkness laughed. It wasn't just Ethan's life hanging by a thread, it was her own as well, a life riddled with regret but spangled with moments of joy that couldn't be extinguished. And she remembered her mother, the love and resilience against that same dark shadow that had taken her away. "I won, let them win," she shouted into the void, defiance igniting within her. The shadows screeched, a chilling chorus of despair, but Cassie clenched her fists, grounding herself in those vibrant memories. "We are not victims," she roared, heart racing, as she advanced toward the wavering figures. Each step felt like forging through an unyielding storm, each breath powered by hope. In the eye of her determination, something shifted, the shadows flickered, hesitating. The malevolent figure raged, its twisted features contorting in confusion. "This cannot be. You cannot fight love. Watch me," Cassie exclaimed, surging forward, pushing deeper into the swarm of darkness. The air around her started to shimmer, threads of light wove between her fingers, sparking like fireflies against the haze. "Ethan!" she called, and in that moment, she felt a warmth bring her closer to him. "Mom!" Ethan's voice echoed through the chaos like a bell. The shadows screeched, frustration rippled through their numbers. Cassie tightened her grip around whatever light remained, her heart hammering like a drum. She could feel Ethan's presence firming up and drawing closer, the bond they shared eclipsing the darkness trying to snatch them away. "Together!" she shouted, reaching deeper into her reserves as she focused on the glowing fragment she spotted in the endless abyss. "We can do this!" As she pressed on, every ounce of despair transformed into strength, each step binding them closer together. They were drawn into an electrifying pulse, their fingers almost interlacing, but the shadows surged forward again, clawing at her, their hisses drowning out reason. "You will choose despair," they howled, dragging at her mind, burrowing into her past failures and pains, each dark event wrapping her heart in chains. "No!" Cassie screamed as she shook off the suffocating pressure. "I reject you." With the momentum she had gained, she fought back, each declaration of love for Ethan becoming a stepping stone against the darkness. She could feel the warmth of his spirit mingling with hers, the essence of their bond taking on form, growing stronger with each heartbeat. Then the shadows howled, disarray flickering across their twisted forms. Cassie steeled herself against the chaos. This was her moment. "Together!" she cried, louder this time, her voice ringing out like a battle cry. "We will not succumb." The tendrils of darkness recoiled as her light surged. In an instant it was as if the void was breaking open itself. The shadows shrieked, unraveling as though caught in a tempest, twisting away. "No!" The sinister figure howled, and Cassie saw the painful distortion of its face as it writhed against her unwavering spirit. "Ethan!" she shouted one more time, filled with an unshakable certainty. Suddenly, in a flash of light, they connected, hands clasped, their spirits intertwining as colors exploded in shimmering brilliance, waves of warmth flooding through them. The darkness shivered, and all at once, it peeled away, revealing an exit bathed in desolate light. Cassie felt Ethan's presence firm beside her, both of them enshrouded in a cocoon of love and shared strength. Together, they stepped through the threshold, the shadows shrieking behind them, their power evaporating like mist under the sun's unyielding gaze. Cassie breathed deeply, the oppressive weight of despair lifting, replaced with renewed energy. They emerged into the library, sunlight cascading through the windows, illuminating the space with warmth. With the shadows now shattered, she turned to Ethan, relief flooding through her. "We did it." Tears sparkled in her eyes as she pulled him close, cradling him in an embrace that felt like home. "I was so scared, Mom," he whispered, fear still echoing in his voice. Cassie hugged him tighter. "So was I. But we faced the darkness together. We're okay now." The terror of losing him still clawed at her heart, but they had prevailed. They had unmasked the shadows, exposed their horror, and reclaimed their freedom. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues through the library's windows, Cassie understood something profound: the love they shared could shine light into the deepest corners of despair. Beyond that darkness lay their lives, a world filled with laughter, adventure, and the bond that could withstand any storm. Cassie smiled at Ethan, wiping away his tears. They still had a journey ahead, but they would face it together. With hands linked tightly, they walked toward the door, ready to embrace whatever awaited them. Would they encounter more shadows? Perhaps. But now they understood the power of love, a beacon that would guide them through any darkness, lighting their path toward a future unmarred. And just as they left the library, Cassie felt a new surge of purpose fill her, this time, not just to protect Ethan, but to share their story, to warn others, and to shine that light far and wide. As they stepped out into the fading light, Cassie's heart swelled with hope. The darkness no longer held sway, they had defeated it together, and their triumph would not vanish. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss what's next. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, and drop your reactions and theories in the comments below. What did you think of this gripping conclusion? Don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of these actions.